Okay. My name is Carrie Swarm, Chief Growth Officer for Urban Teachers. So welcome to tonight's webinar for Breakthrough Collaborative alums, teaching fellows around the country. And we at least have one. Taryn Peacock is with us tonight, who's Breakthrough Collaborative alum from San Juan Capistrano. And I'm hopeful we'll have at least one other person who is from Breakthrough Collaborative Twin Cities, who is going to join us after her coursework in DC. So we'll see if the timing works for her. But to start off tonight's webinar, I was going to just talk through two slides briefly and then turn it over into a Q&A. So I know we have some folks on the call tonight who are muted. So if you have questions, please post them in the Q&A and I'll try to be to monitor the questions and get them answered throughout the presentation. Two things I wanted to do to start is we are very excited that Breakthrough Collaborative alums are now part of an initiative that we have for pre-admission. So we've known, I've been with the organization now over 6.5 years, overseeing recruitment and selection, and now expanding the organization. And I saw right away, as soon as I started this job, I started meeting Breakthrough Collaborative alums and knew this incredible passion that Breakthrough Collaborative brings to their teaching fellows, and saw it immediately when I was recruiting around the country. So very excited that for the first time now we are sort of recognizing that passion and that expertise that you gain from Breakthrough Collaborative in allowing folks to just complete an online application, and then you can skip our digital performance task and skip our final interview and come directly to join our cohorts now in Dallas, Fort Worth, in DC, or Baltimore. So we're very excited about that opportunity for our Breakthrough Collaborative alums. But just briefly, since you do skip that part, we just want to make sure that you completely understand the model of our program and our finances. Since you don't come and spend time with us in person for our final interview day, we just want to make sure that you understand these components of our program, and then we wanted you to talk to Breakthrough Collaborative alums in our program to hear directly from them. So this slide is the slide that sort of shows you our model all in one place. So the first year is the recruitment cycle. We do look for a minimum GPA of a 3.0 as preferred. We are able to go down to a 2.75 for outstanding candidates, and obviously we count Breakthrough Collaborative alums as all outstanding candidates. We also have a little window in DC and Dallas, Fort Worth to go just a little bit lower down to a 2.5 if you have STEM major or work experience. So we will count anybody who did Breakthrough Collaborative and did worked in math, middle school math, as part of that criteria. Also, our little other criteria, if you happen to be working with one of our school partners in Dallas, Fort Worth, or in DC as well. So those are the two little windows to go a little bit lower there. But obviously, we're looking for folks who are results-oriented, resilient, reflective. Breakthrough Collaborative, again, really instills all of those qualities in folks. So we're excited to offer this opportunity. For our program, we do require a 4-year commitment. And how the program works is that we spend a whole year in a residency. So you're placed along with 2 different host teachers. You have 2 different summer experiences as part of that residency. So during the school year, you're co-teaching, and you have one host teacher in the fall and a different one in the winter, spring. You also begin your master's, and it's going to be with, this is a little bit different for Taryn. We just switched our higher ed partner with our incoming cohort 2016, Johns Hopkins University School of Ed. And all of the coursework, it is basically the same coursework that Taryn got, though with improvements that we make every year. And there's 3 different programs of study you can choose from: elementary ed, and that's the one Taryn did. You can do secondary English language arts or secondary math, and all 3 come with a second certification in special education. And if you join our Dallas Fort Worth cohort, you can also earn a 3rd certification in English as a second language. So that if that's of interest to you, we would definitely encourage folks to do the Dallas Fort Worth cohort there. So you do your master's in the afternoons and the evenings during your residency year. You probably finish maybe 80% of your graduate coursework during your residency year. before you move on to the second year and you finish your master's at the end of that second year, your first year of teaching. So it's a much lighter course load in year 2 while you're a first year teacher, and that all of that is by design and on purpose. One other thing that's important, and hopefully Taryn can talk to her experience with this, but you get over 100 hours of one-on-one coaching as part of Urban Teachers. So I do very much, I would always hear about Breakthrough Collaborative teaching fellows getting coached as part of your process. So this is really taking it to that next level and really training you for a career in teaching. So over 100 hours, so 36 hours in the first year, 36 in the second, and the remainder in the third year. So that is really, I really don't know any other teacher preparation program that has as much support as Urban Teachers does to really work and improve your teaching practice. The white bars here really also talks about another important component of Urban Teachers is our accountability. So each year of our program, you have to meet certain standards to move on. So that you have to meet certain GPA requirement of 3.0 in all of your graduate coursework. You have to meet teaching practice expectations, and you have to demonstrate a high levels of growth mindset. I'm sorry, hopefully you can't see my emails shooting off there. But so each year you have to meet increasingly sort of stringent accountability moments, particularly around our teacher practice rubric, which is what we call that. And you're being coached against that as well. So that's important for you to know. And in fact, during the third year is where it's most important because it determines whether or not you get certified with Urban Teachers. So during that third year, we do pre and post testing, actually really over those 2 years, pre and post testing of all of your students against a nationally normed test. And then you also have to meet so that's actually weighed 40%. The other 40% are sort of the skills and behaviors we expect to see in effective teachers. So you're coached against that. It's a teaching practice rubric that I talked about. And again, we're looking for very high levels, growth mindset, and professionalism. And finally, the fourth year is your last year of teaching. That's part of your requirement with Urban Teachers. So Taryn is in your fourth year with us, right? I count, yes, last and fourth year with us. And so there's opportunities to take on leadership roles with Urban Teachers. So hopefully Taryn can talk about that, about herself and other colleagues. So some of our folks have become host teachers while they're still with us, or soon after they've graduated from our program, they're graduate assistants, they're summer mentors, and other roles that Urban Teachers definitely encourages folks to who've gone through our program to participate in our program with folks in their residency year and on up. So that's our 4 years. I'm going to talk through our finances quickly. And I'm sorry, let's see if I can make this bigger for you, and hopefully you can see it in a big-ish way. So you can see for each of the years, we've tried to show the costs and benefits for the program. So let me make that a little bit bigger. So in the first year, so I've talked through a lot of the benefits. So I'll stick to sort of the financial ones. So we do provide a $20,000 stipend to live on. We do also pay for your room and board for Summer Institute. You also get your health care. We cover your health care costs through Johns Hopkins School of Education. We also pay for all of your books and materials for your graduate degree. We cover all of that one-on-one coaching I talked about. You're eligible for federal financial aid. And in fact, if you have other prior loans, you can put them in forbearance, actually for the first 2 years. So if you have prior student loans, you wouldn't need to start paying them back until year 3. Urban Teachers is also now an AmeriCorps affiliate program, and that means that our participants are eligible for up to 2 Siegel AmeriCorps Education Awards, and they're typically worth about $5,700, and you can get 2 of those, one at the end of the residency year and one at the end of year 2. I wanted to talk through the costs. The cost of our program is $40,000. The tuition is paid in 4 installments. So there's a fall bill, spring bill, and then year 2, a fall and a spring. They're $10,000 each. And because we're with Johns Hopkins University School of Ed, you can work with the financial aid office and fill out a FAFSA and get federal financial aid to cover all of those costs. And they will be timed so that when the bill comes, you will have the money from federal loans to cover those. You will also need to pay for your Praxis 2 or PAC test costs. Though I do want to say on the way in, we do have financial aid for Praxis Core and the PAC tests if you need it. And we right now have Praxis Core free online on-demand math course that's available for free. And hopefully this week I will have 2 of the PACT math courses free and online as well. So we're about to share information about that in case that's important and something that you need. Starting in year 2 is when you get the full teacher salary and benefits. Again, we continue to pay for your books and materials, your coaching. You're still eligible for that loan forbearance. You're eligible for financial aid. You can get that Siegel Ed Award. And actually the second summer, you are paid for your summer instruction. So that can help too. You have those 2 fall bills. So total of $40,000 for the entire, everything you get from our program. The other thing I just want to say was sort of skipping on to year 6. So there's some significant federal government teacher benefits to pay back loans. So if you teach math or special ed for 5 years, and it would be 6 years if you do take an AmeriCorps award, you can get $17,500 of loan forgiveness if you're teaching math or special ed. So that's significant. If you're teaching other subject areas, it could be more like $5,000. Many of our participants are also eligible for things like the Teach Grant. That's worth up to $4,000 a year while completing Urban Teachers. And then there's a couple other specific loan programs, particularly in Baltimore, that you could be eligible for the Janet Hoffman Loan Assistance Program, and that's a very generous program too. So finances, you might want to check out Baltimore if that's important to you. The last thing I wanted to say here before I will start doing a Q&A with Taryn is that where we work, many of the school districts in the cities that we work in really have some very generous starting teacher pay. So in Baltimore, DC, and Dallas-Fort Worth, so they tend to be in the high 40s and 50,000 for the starting teacher pay. And many of the districts that we work with have pay for performance. So that you can more quickly earn higher teacher salary for being effective. And so by going through a teacher preparation program like Urban Teachers, we hope that you'll be well set up to more quickly move up that salary ladder because you are an effective teacher. So that's where I was going to stop with all that. So I don't know if there's any questions that folks have about that before I move into the Q&A. And so I was asking folks, all the participants, if you have any questions, if you could write them in the Q&A box. And I don't see any now, so if you think of any, put them there. And so I was going to start a conversation with Taryn. So Taryn, if you can unmute yourself. Right, you have, yeah. Good. All right, so I wanted to introduce Taryn Peacock to everybody. So she teaches 2nd grade at Two Rivers Public Charter School in Washington, D.C. She has been part of our elementary ed cohort 2013. She's also a Stanford grad from 2013, who's originally from Arizona, who is a Breakthrough Collaborative alum from San Juan Capistrano in California. So I wanted to welcome Taryn. Thank you for being on tonight. So I would love for you, I just said where, all where you're from and all of that. So if you could tell us back when, so I know it's been many years from you now, but what were you looking for in a teacher prep program back when you were at Stanford, and why did you choose Urban Teachers over other programs?
Cool. So when I was looking for a program, I knew that I wanted something that offered a lot of support and a lot of coaching. I knew that there were other programs out there, or I could even just try and go into a school, but I really wanted something where I would become the best teacher that I could. And I felt like the only way I could do that would be through working with people who had more experience than me, both in the classroom and also in my graduate coursework as well. So that's what I was really looking for, a good balance of coaching from people with classroom experience as well as my graduate coursework experience. The reason I chose Urban Teachers is because it had that 4-year support. Instead of just one summer, instead of just 2 years, it was really 4 years of support and coaching, even though I'm not getting regular coaching right now in my final year. If I ask someone to come into my classroom, they will. If I'm reaching out to my coach or to the director of my program, I can still get support from them. So it definitely still feels like I'm part of that community and getting what I need from it. So yeah, that was kind of why I chose Urban Teachers. Also really wanted to live in DC, so it just made sense.
Great. And Taryn, how do you think Breakthrough Collaborative prepared you for Urban Teachers? And
Yeah.
I don't know if you did just one summer with them or you did multiple. I can't remember.
I only did one summer with Breakthrough Collaborative, and I think how Breakthrough Collaborative helped prepare me was just knowing that teaching is not everything that you see in movies about teachers. It's not just getting up and being creative in front of kids. It's not just getting up and trying to keep people's attention. There's a lot of work that has to go into it. And I don't know if I would have been aware of all of the work that goes on outside of the classroom if I had not done Breakthrough.
And if you can speak a little bit more specifically about how you think Urban Teachers really prepared you to be a great teacher. So you're finished your residency year and now you're in your 3rd year of teaching.
Yep.
So I've done a webinar before and it's I think posted on our website too with the residents who are their 1st year. So, they were actually very pleasant, but I know sometimes that's a very tough year. And sometimes it's not so much later in your career you appreciate what we put you through. So you are, farther down and you can maybe reflect a little bit more about, what Urban Teachers did and taught you and how the coaching worked to really put you on that path to be a great teacher. So if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot. I think part of it is just the expectations of being an urban teacher set me up well. So it's not a program where they're just going to allow you to have to do things. Like you have to do things well. You have to put your best effort into it in your graduate coursework, in your practicum work. So when you're working in your classroom, in your residency year, Urban Teachers has very high expectations of you through the teacher practice rubric. And I think that just knowing what I am responsible to do, I think that is just a great preparation, just having that correct mindset to go into the classroom. In terms of skills that I got from it, through the coursework and through my residency year, being exposed to different ways of teaching students, being exposed to different ways of differentiating material, that really gave me, I didn't master anything, but I knew a lot of different things that I could try. And I had tried different things, and I then could use that. And even in this year, I'm using things that I maybe learned in my social studies class or in my writing class that I took in my residency year that I never had a chance to use in my 1st or 2nd year. But now that I have a little bit more freedom in my classroom, there's different things that I'm allowed to try to do. So that's nice, just having that different exposure to different methodologies. Another way that I've been prepared is through the emphasis on data, which personally I kind of go back and forth like, oh my gosh, there's so much emphasis on data. Why do we have to do this? But the fact of the matter is that is what a lot of schools are looking for. And that is just one good way of tracking your students' growth. And so I appreciate that Urban Teachers kind of forced me into tracking data for students. Because that is something that as a teacher you are expected to do and something that you should want to do so that you can see, are my methods of teaching actually impacting my students' growth am I making a difference, or does it just feel like I'm making a difference? So through that, I learned different ways to track my class growth, to track individual student growth. And that's something that I don't think I would have gotten had I not chosen a program like Urban Teachers.
Great. Hey, did Kendall just join, by the way?
Yeah, it looks like Kendall's on now too.
Okay. Sorry, you're only in my window, Taryn. So
yeah, I just got here.
Yes. So sorry. Yes. Thank you. So Kendall's here too. So are you sitting together too? Now I see you looking the same.
No.
So it says Taryn's name under it too. So again, Kendall, this is a new webinar version of the tool. So I did put a disclaimer that it was going to throw me off a little bit. So I've got Kendall Van Sisteren here too. So she teaches pre-K in our elementary program. She is a resident. So that means she's in her first year. So 6 months or more. I think you're halfway through, is what I heard.
Yes, that's what I think so too.
Halfway through your residency year. She's McAllister grad from 2015, who's a Breakthrough Collaborative alum from the Twin Cities. So we were just going through with Taryn how Urban Teachers is prepared to be a great teacher, and she's talked about how it's really how it's improved her teaching over time, and even things. It's probably good for you to hear, Kendall, that things she took.
Yes, very reassuring. Yeah,
still using in her third year of teaching there. So I did tell people they can ask questions in the chat tool or the Q&A. So I am monitoring that, but I'm just sort of walking you through the questions that I prepared. So I'd love for Kendall maybe to talk about your typical day at Urban Teachers, and then maybe Taryn too, because yours would be different as like the experienced teacher at the other end. But Kendall, if you could talk about your typical day at Urban Teachers as a resident. I know January, February is a little bit different than the typical. So up to you how you think that the best way to answer that.
Yeah. So as a resident, you teach a full day and then also have classes. So I leave my house by 6:45, get on the metro, go all the way down to Congress Heights. I get to school at like 6:30, 6:40, which gives me 20 minutes to set up breakfast, set up any materials I need personally for the day. Sometimes I'll have things to do for my host teacher. And then at 8 o'clock, I go outside for outside duty with the students, stay out there for 30 minutes. And then from like 8:45 until 3 o'clock is kind of like the instructional day. And because I'm in pre-K, we have a nap in there, and everyone always is like, oh, you're so lucky. And I'm like, no, you try telling 19 4-year-olds that they can't talk and they can't play with each other for an hour and a half. Sometimes very relaxing, sometimes not so much. So dismissal is like 3:10. I usually can take like 40 minutes at my school to kind of prep for the next day. We're in practicum right now, so I have a lot of files to print out, books to get ready, just do odd jobs around the school. And then around 4:15, I have to get back on the bus and then the metro up to coursework. I usually get to coursework up at DC Bilingual by 5 o'clock, which gives me a good amount of time to eat and just kind of decompress. And then class is 5:30 to 8:30 most nights, but on Monday nights, because it's practicum, it's 5:30 to 7:30. So that is a wonderful change from last semester. Last semester, Monday through Thursday was 5:30 to 8:30. And then you get home, do whatever work you need to do, try to get to bed at a reasonable hour so you can do the whole thing again. Typical day.
Yeah. So it is meant to be pretty intense, the residency year by design, so that when Kendall's a first year teacher next year, it will seem like less time. That is
exactly.
Yeah. And then Taryn, you want to talk through what your typical day is like too?
Yeah, and I'll also talk a little bit about year 2 as well. So in year 2, when it's your first year teaching of record in the classroom, it's it feels a lot less than what Kendall was describing. So, it's hard because it's your first year teaching, but instead of having coursework those 4 nights of the week, you might only be going a couple of nights. I don't know if it's changed at all, Carrie, but I remember in my second semester of my first year, I only had 1 course and it was online.
We're still not doing online. No more online.
Okay. No more online, but it's only maybe 1 or 2 courses.
Yes, it's a much lighter load. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a much lighter load in your second year. So even though you're still finishing up your coursework, it's a much lighter load. Right now in my third year of teaching, I'm pretty much waking up and getting to school around the same time as Kendall, depending on the day. I'll try and get to work around, let's see, my kids get there at 8:15. So I try to get there between 7:45 and 8 o'clock just to make sure that I'm ready. I'm with them until 3:30, and that's usually me. That's the instructional time. I'm teaching second grade, so we don't get a nap. And I agree, nap I've heard can be really hard. But my kids have specials, so I'm not with them the entire day between 8:15 and 3:30. So I do get a couple of planning periods in that time. And sometimes I have meetings as well during those blocks of time. So it's usually maybe in the day, I'll get 45 minutes to an hour and a half of planning time, in addition to the instruction time and lunch and recess. After work ends at 3:30, or after the kids leave at 3:30, I'm usually staying at school until around 4:30 or 5 o'clock on a normal day. And that's just doing prep work, lesson planning, making copies, any after school meetings that I have. If I feel like there's a lot I need to do, or if I want to get a head start on something, then I will usually end up staying until about 6 o'clock. I try not to bring work home with me. So that's why sometimes I stay later at school, because I try my hardest to keep work at work and keep home at home. It's hard as a teacher. This is really the first year that I've even tried not bringing work home. My first 2 years, I was always doing work at home. So this is the first year that I'm really trying to leave school at school. But yeah, that's my usual day. Out the door by like 6 o'clock, 6:30. I'm getting back home around 7 o'clock. Yeah.
One question I was going to ask you both is, what surprised you most about teaching? And I know you're at different points of your career. It felt like you both could still answer this.
What surprises me the most?
And for people, I think Breakthrough does give you a wonderful taste, and that's actually like I've coined the phrase like try before you buy, and Breakthrough, it's definitely on my list to like give you at least a summer where you're getting a taste of what teaching is like. So you all have feel good about the experience you have, and if you come away from that thinking you want to go into this career, you have a good idea of what that is. But a lot of people don't. So this is a Breakthrough collaborative audience. So thinking about your Breakthrough experience, even having a little window there, like what were you still surprised about the teaching profession so far, either 7 months in for Kendall or a couple years in for Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think Breakthrough gave me a really good idea of how much planning goes into writing lessons and then executing them, and a really good idea of like what feedback looks like. I know I had a couple of lessons where my coach at Breakthrough would be like, that was not what needed to happen. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And you just go back and try it again. And that was really useful. I think before Breakthrough, I didn't know how to take feedback. And I think that really helped me move into Urban Teachers with a good mindset, because I think beforehand, I think I would have been really resistant to it. But I think I'm just continuously surprised by classroom management. With 4-year-olds, you have to have something new and fun almost every day. So that's something that with my 7th graders at Breakthrough, I didn't have to do as much with that. And now I think just being prepared to handle any behavior that comes my way with my 19 4-year-olds, that's like what surprised me the most. And it's hilarious and it's funny, but sometimes it's just like this cannot happen.
I think I've been thinking, I think there's two things that surprise me. One is very related to Kendall. It's just the amount of personality in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I realized how much personality there would be with 25 students that I'm hanging out with every day, that I'm working with and building relationships every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that is both fulfilling and can also be draining, because it's 25 relationships that you're trying to balance, and 25 relationships that you're trying to grow and improve and hopefully use for academic growth. But it's so much, how much fun I have with them every day never ceases to amaze me. One of the things that surprised me, I don't want to say negative, but I guess on a less fun end, is that I feel like I have so many different bosses. Like, I'm accountable to my students, I'm accountable to their families, I'm accountable to my administration, I'm accountable to urban teachers, I'm accountable to myself. So it feels like there's so many people who have expectations of me, and so many people who I want to do right by. First and foremost, my students, but at the same time, there's a lot of different stakeholders as well. And so that is something every day I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think that this person would feel some way about that, or that they would have something to say about this. And, oh, did I do something wrong? I was just trying to be right here, but now this person's upset. So there's always a lot of different people, but at the end of the day, everyone cares about the student's growth. And when you remember that, you just have to let some things, I've had to learn to let some things roll off my shoulders. And know I'm not going to make everyone 100% happy 100% of the time. But as long as I'm doing what I think is right for my students and what most of us think is right for our students, then that's what matters the most.
Great. I did want to talk just a little bit about, since I don't have all three sites on the line, and it would be unfair for you to say too much more about why DC is great. So I don't want to do that. But instead, I want to talk about in all three of our sites, we have people moving from other places to be part of our cohort. So I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about, what that's like, sort of moving to a new city and then having urban teachers as part of Summer Institute, how that really helped you sort of get acclimated to a new city. And then for Taryn, how those relationships, if you're still friends with those people or not. And I hope I know the right answer.
I actually live with one, my roommate in the other room.
There we go. Okay, good. So yeah, if you can talk about that, because both of you moved from other places, and that's very common in our Baltimore site and Dallas-Fort Worth as well. So if you can talk about that experience and how Urban Teachers has helped in that space.
Yeah. I mean, so I am originally from a small city in Wisconsin, went to the Twin Cities in Minnesota for college, which was like a big step up in terms of size of city and just like experiences and opportunities. And then moving to DC was like kind of like another step after the Twin Cities. And I was really excited to have the opportunity to like make new relationships and make new opportunities for myself. But I definitely appreciated the like bonding that happened over Summer Institute, because you all know that you're in it together and that it's really hard, but you have people to turn to support you. I currently live with 5 other residents, and it's going great. I mean, we help each other out when we need help with homework or just like surviving, like cooking meals for each other. Stuff like that. So it's really important that there's a cohort, and like talking with friends who move to other cities for jobs or grad school, not having a sort of like cohort that's very deliberate about like bonding and working together, they definitely have struggled a little bit more post-grad. And I actually just graduated in the spring. So like 6 months out of college, I feel like it's really important that you have people that you can turn to, because that was such a like concentrated amount of time that you were with people at college. And this is kind of like a similar feel, I guess.
Great. Karen?
Can you say the question again for me?
So yeah, so it's sort of like how urban teachers really helped you sort of move into a new city. So you moved from someplace else, and whether or not you're still friends, and maybe if they're professional colleagues of yours too now that you can draw on.
Yeah, so definitely echo everything Kendall said in terms of the support, both with coursework, with just all the demands of being a resident, and then also that built-in like social support as well. I found that to be really important, especially in my first and second year. In my third year, when I wasn't taking coursework anymore, I actually felt like a part of my DC experience was missing because I wasn't seeing those same people every day. Like I was happy to be done, I was proud of myself, but at the same time, I had gotten so used to seeing these people for so much of my time. So that's when I realized like how important those relationships were to me. Now, fast forward, being in the program for 4 years, I'm not friends with everyone in my cohort, but I live with someone right now who's in my cohort. I still hang out with a lot of people, so there's still that. I think socially it is very important to be able to have those relationships. And now, since we're out of the like real intense coursework piece of it, our relationships have grown beyond just the, hey, what's going on with urban teachers? Like they feel not more meaningful, they've just changed. So I definitely appreciate that they've gone beyond just what's happening in the classroom. In terms of professionally, I actually, when I was thinking about switching schools, I was able to reach out to the network that I had established through Urban Teachers. And even like as I consider where I might want to go in a couple years from now, I'm always thinking about like where I know people, where I have connections. Right now, since we're finishing our commitment to Urban Teachers, some of my colleagues from my cohort are actually considering moving into different parts of education. So it'll be interesting to see like how that network changes now that some people are moving out of the classroom, other people are moving into more administrative positions or into teacher leader positions. So I'm really excited to see how that changes my professional network. And I know that it's something that I'm going to be able to lean on. Also, Jacqueline is our director here at DC, and so just the site team as well is a huge support. So whenever I have problems, when I was looking for schools to apply to after my residency year, they were very supportive in connecting me with people.
Great. Good. All right. So sort of to wrap it up, I just wanted to see if you had any advice for the individuals on the call and who will see this recording. So breakthrough folks usually have a lot of choices. So I would love for you to help them, help them figure out what is the best move if they are interested in going into teaching as a career. And think back a little bit. And Kendall, I missed that sort of opportunity with you to talk about how Breakthrough Collaborative sort of prepared you for urban teachers. But if you could maybe use that question about what advice do you have for folks on the call, again, who have multiple choices here about how they should think about their next steps.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of Breakthrough, we had a professional development week, and we had a couple different teacher training programs come in. We had Teach for America, we had Urban Teachers come in, and a lot of people were hesitant to go to the Teach for America one, and then everyone heard like Urban Teachers, but like, what is that? And I swam with Becca Gailey, who is a year 2 or like a year 1 fellow, I guess. So I had already heard the name and had like talked to her about it, and then through the presentation, I just learned so much about the commitment it requires and like the intensity of the program. And that's like really what drew me to it. I wasn't interested in getting into a program that people were going to teach for a year and then leave and move on to something else. I wanted to be with like-minded individuals who wanted to teach for a long period of time, to commit to a city and to students and really build those relationships up. So that's why I really didn't look at programs that required less of a time commitment. And then the coaching on top of it just kind of fit with what I was learning at Breakthrough, that you have someone who is familiar with the way you teach and gives you feedback, and you can go to them for advice, and they're going to give you advice even if you don't ask for advice, which is great too, because you don't always know when to ask for advice. And so it just kind of seems like a really natural step after Breakthrough when I realized that I did want to go into teaching. And then in talking with Becca, she just had great things to say about how it was preparing her. So that's kind of how I chose Urban Teachers.
Great. Good. Taryn, any advice for folks about the teaching career and Urban Teachers specifically?
I think my advice is to just be really thoughtful and honest about what it is that you're looking for. There are a lot of different programs, and I think Urban Teachers is one of the best that really prepares teachers, but you have to want it, and it's very difficult. Like going through my first and second year, it was really, really hard, but felt like it was hard for a reason. Like I wasn't just drowning and struggling in something without the support and without knowing that what I was doing was going to make a difference. Like I was struggling, but I was struggling to make myself a better teacher. I wasn't struggling like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to teach and I don't know if I'm ever going to get better at this. I knew I was going to get better because I had chosen a program that was going to help me get there. So I think just my word of advice is, as great as Urban Teachers is, you have to really do self-reflection on what you're looking for and be prepared for the fact that it's not all easy. It's fun, you meet great people, it's rewarding work, but it's very difficult. So
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I did get a question, so I am going to answer that, and we'll see. I was typing away to say last chance for any live questions. So was just going to circle back as someone's asking about what did it mean to be pre-approved, and I'm happy to speak to that again. So pre-approval means that for Breakthrough alums, all you need to do is complete your online application. And I didn't mention, we do have a deadline coming up here, February 13th, so we hope you'll complete by then. And so then you get to, if you pass our review, so you do need to meet our GPA requirements, and you do need to write an essay that is good. So make sure, we will cut people for essays, so make sure you spend a little bit of time on that. And then if you do pass that, then we'll ask you for 2 recommendations and your transcripts. And then once we have that, we'll actually give you an offer to join our cohort, and you can choose. All our sites are still open. You can choose Washington, D.C., Baltimore, or Dallas, Fort Worth. So then you would start the process then to enroll in our program. You'll complete an online application for Johns Hopkins, our higher ed partner, which we will bundle all of your materials for them. And so you'll also need to pass the Praxis Score, the PAC test. So those are some other steps in the process. But what it means is you get to skip doing a digital performance test, get to skip a final interview, and come directly in. And I shared earlier that, we know Breakthrough alums are, already screened by Breakthrough. You already have at least one summer of a really a great experience, sort of what I have labeled try before you buy, to spend a summer really exploring the teaching profession. And we are very much encouraging folks, Breakthrough alums, to join our program. And we have many years of alums in all 3 of our sites, and excited and happy to, if anybody on the call or who hears this recording is interested in hearing from folks in Baltimore, Dallas, Fort Worth, I can connect you as well. Both my Baltimore and Dallas, Fort Worth folks said they had coursework tonight till 8:45, so I was not able to get them. So, but I can definitely connect you to folks in other city too, so you can hear from them as well. So any questions here before we wrap up? Quick last minute questions here. All right. Well, I want to particularly thank Kendall and Taryn for hopping on tonight. You can hear being a teacher is a lot of work and takes up a lot of time. But I'm always, I'm just thrilled always to be on the calls with them and hearing about their work and how they're really prepared to serve kids. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Be prepared for tomorrow. And thank you, everybody. And hope folks on the call will apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.